finally, one of us threw out, I don't remember who it was, the idea, well, we should do a confession booth. And we thought, that's hysterical. That's an absolutely hysterical idea. We'll do a confession booth. People come in, we'll tell them to confess their sins. They'll think it's hysterical. I'm sure we'll hear just the wackiest stories imaginable. Oh, this is a great idea. So we're battering it around, tongue-in-cheek mostly. But yeah, wouldn't that be funny? And then at one point in the conversation, I just made this comment. I said, no, we won't ask them to confess to us. We'll confess to them. And it kind of landed a bit like a stone in the middle of the room. And we kind of sat around and looked at each other. And it was just clearly something that felt like it was a God idea. Could we possibly do this? And we started to talk about it, and everyone got a little bit excited. What would it look like if Christians build a confession booth? And like the whole 9 yards. Dawn and I dressed up in monk's robes, and we rung cowbells and walked around campus saying, sins will be heard now, come to the confession booth, all that kind of, pageantry about it. But then when people came in, there'd be a monk on the other side, and that monk would confess his sins, was the idea, to the student, would confess the sins of the church, the Christian church, and the mistakes that we've made in history and today that we're making, things that don't represent Jesus. And it was just this beautiful idea that scared the crap out of us. I remember we tried, actually, Don and I tried to cancel the idea about 12 times. Because everybody said he and I should do the monk's role. We're like, I don't know if I can do this. It's freaky, It's freaky to kind of go into that kind of unknown, but it's freaky to stand there in front of people who are strangers or acquaintances and go, hey, I want to share with you ways that I know that I'm a screw up. And I'm just going to say this to you, and I'm going to ask you to forgive me. And to go in there, there's an element of opening up the kind of shadowy parts of who I am that I don't want to have to do. But the students were so excited about it that we couldn't cancel it. We kept trying. And Mitch was so excited to build that confession booth, He was so excited to go buy the wood. He'd already bought the wood, actually. And so what are we going to do? A broke college student spends $80 on wood. And it's like, we got to go through with the thing. And so sure enough, Friday night, Mitch has the thing all built, and it looks kind of like a confession booth, freestanding in the middle of the courtyard. And tiki torches around it, and a door. It's it's the thing where you sit on one side and there's a window, and somebody sits on the other side, and you sit inside and there's like a curtain, and all the whole 9 yards. We really had fun with it, and you're sitting there in your monk's robe. And as soon as it was open for business, two students actually came in and sat down across from me, and the dialogue for each person came in went something like, "Hi, this is a confession booth. Welcome, great to have you here. So this is a place where confessions are heard, and if it's okay with you, I would like to begin. First of all, I'm not a monk, and I know that surprises you. Secondly, I am a Christian. I am a follower of Jesus, and Christianity has been responsible for a lot of things that I would like to ask your forgiveness for. Things that I don't think represent the heart of Jesus. There's been the Inquisition and the Crusades, racism, wars waged in the name of God and Jesus. And these are things that I think makes God's heart sad, that people who claim to know him would do this stuff, and I'm one of them. And I want to ask your forgiveness. Would you please forgive at least me, as one person who identifies himself as a member of this family that has made these mistakes. And then more pointedly, Jesus stood for a lot of stuff. He stood for love and grace and friendship, making other people more important than yourself, and serving. And I hang out on this campus every day, and I don't love you. I don't set aside my own agenda for you the way Jesus would, and the kind of grace and friendship that Jesus extended to people. I'm just failing at it every day, and I need to ask your forgiveness for that. Would you please forgive me and accept my desire to be more like what I claim I believe? Would you please do that for me? And inevitably, the students would just be like completely caught off guard, and the response would be something like, "That's the most effing beautiful thing I've ever heard in my entire life." And then, after a moment of silence, every time the students would stop and go, "Here's a little bit of my story. My dad used to beat the crap out of me when I was a kid. And from the time I was 2 to the time I was 5, and then the story would just unfold. Pain, abuse, addiction, whatever it was, and they would just pour their story out. We would sit and we would talk for 20, 30 minutes at a time. 1, 2, 3 students all crammed in this little tiny box, just telling the pain of their life. And having a chance to go, Jesus cares about that stuff. I'm just convinced he does. And have a chance to talk with them. And we spent a whole weekend, and it seems like that chair was never empty. As soon as somebody came up and got out, somebody would walk up and just wander inside and sit down. The conversation would start again. Hi, it's a confession booth. It's a place where confessions are heard. If it's okay, I'd like to begin. I'm a Christian, and I'm sorry sometimes. And then you just go through the discussion with them, and it just was really a beautiful weekend. That story is told quite a bit, as people have heard about it or whatever. And it was it was a supernatural experience. In my mind, it felt like something out of this world. But, we weren't doing it because we thought it'd be a really great way to take the gospel to the campus or something. We just wanted to really share honestly with people, and it was a way, through a little bit of pageantry, to just have an honest dialogue with people, and that's what we wanted. And it really was beautiful, and I'm very thankful for those students who would come into that space, again, come onto our territory, and then they would open up such tenderness about who they were and how they hurt, and these were not militant, anarchists, that we were dealing with, as they're often called. These are just great, thoughtful, often hurting kids who are just trying to figure out life like the rest of us. And it really just was a beautiful time.